Here is Kamala Harris telling Dana Bash that her position on Israel will not differ from Joe Biden's. This is another instance of great waffling because she says, I will always make sure Israel has what it needs to defend itself, but we need a deal. And then when pressed, she reaffirms that, well, we're not going to change policy, but we need a deal. Here is international diplomacy at work.
Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and
she says, let me be very clear. It's a sign that she's not going to be clear. You know, she said, let me be very clear. I'm about to say two things at the same time. Right?
You got to love the Nixon classics.
Yeah, that's like saying I'm going to be honest with you right now.
Let me make one thing perfectly clear.
Yes.
Wavering in my commitment to Israel's defense, and it's unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7. 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival. Women were horribly raped. As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters.
Oh, that's nice.
Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
but no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done. When you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8 to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution, where Israel is secure and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Okay, so there's a lot
many of our donors are salivating at the chance to rebuild Gaza without its native population there, and we can't do that until Israel stops bombing. So we need a deal.
That's right. There's a lot there. Look, of course, we just have to mention every time, and we have to say, obviously, that we do not deny that atrocities and war crimes were committed on October 7th. Those war crimes are being investigated by the ICC, who handed down arrest warrants for both the Hamas leaders and the Netanyahu government. And obviously, those war crimes should be investigated. But, of course, mass rape used systematically as a weapon of war, every outlet that printed that went on has had to walk that back. And that is a lie at this point that she continues to tell every single chance she gets. No, absolutely, they all do. And so does she. And this talk about getting a deal for the hostage exchange, talk about a take that aged like spilt milk. 6 hostages were tragically killed over the past 48 hours. And there are now protests in Israel and a general strike pending in Israel. We're going to talk about this later in the show. But the Israelis understand that Benjamin Netanyahu is using the hostages as an excuse to go and eradicate Gaza. And the people of Israel, not liberals by any means, would rather have their hostages back than have the war continue. And so Kamala Harris is surely pretending not to know that. Everybody in a position of power understands that. Everybody in a position of power understands that a full hostage exchange has been on the table for months now, and that it has been Netanyahu who has stymied deal after deal after deal because he is under investigation and he needs to keep this war going to save his own ass. The Israelis understand that. The Israelis understand that. They are flooding the streets of Tel Aviv as we speak right now, protesting as a result of these murders. And so you come out here, this was a few days before, and you say, well, we have to get a deal done, as if Benjamin Netanyahu is not the impediment to that deal. So out of one side of your mouth, you're saying we have to get a deal done. Out of the other side of your mouth, you're saying we're always going to make sure, always, unconditionally and unequivocally, make sure that they have weapons. Well, what you're saying then is you're not going to get a deal done, because Netanyahu doesn't want a deal done. Netanyahu wants to wipe Gaza out and use the fact that the hostages are not back as an excuse to do that. And so to just pretend not to know any of that and just appeal to, and this is what I said earlier, I said this, a week ago now? This is why the country, as a political entity, I don't wish harm upon ordinary people, obviously, but as a political entity, this country does not deserve success, because she's talking to us as if we don't understand that. And you know what? I think a lot of Americans don't understand that. I think a lot of Americans are too incurious to bother understanding that. And if the Israelis understand that, then maybe we should understand that when we go to vote.
Well, it goes well beyond that. And with Kamala Harris, she's such a puppet. She's such a stooge. It's hard to know how much of this history she really understands. But this is just the latest in almost a century, really, of not just Israel, of the entire Western world playing a divide and conquer game with the Arab world. Now we decry that we don't have secular forces in that area to deal with. That's because we destroyed them. Israel funded, built up, and empowered Hamas to act as a counter to the secular socialist Fatah. And Western powers did that all over that region. You have a lot of people who are under the misimpression, that Islamic culture is inherently fundamentalist, that it's inherent to the religion, that it's inherent to their societies. And what's really funny is those same people will pass around pictures of women in miniskirts in Iran before the revolution with complete and absolute ignorance of why it did not secularize in that way. The fact that the West did not allow it to secularize in that way. The fact that when there was a secularization movement of a socialist character rising up in the Arab world in the post-war period as the colonial empires collapsed, we sent in our intelligence agencies to whack out their leaders, including in Iran, installing the Shah. Eventually, the Ayatollah and the Iranian Revolution was the blowback from those operations. Same thing here. MI6, the CIA, they were all involved in limiting the powers of the PLO and Fatah, making sure that a real secular, successful government could not take root in these regions. And now having Kamala go up there, this is what's so disingenuous about it. Although in her particular case, it's hard to know how much she really understands that history. Certainly the people pulling her strings understand that history. To say, we need a two-state solution. Well, we've been helping to thwart that solution for the entire history of the state of Israel. And everybody knows one phone call from the United States would end this tomorrow. We're not sending you any more money. We're not sending you any more weapons. We're going to sanction you. One phone call like that from the United States, it would be the end of this war. Immediately. The idea that we don't have that power, and this is the same thing they do domestically. Oh, the parliamentarian, yeah. Gosh, I wish we could get a peace deal. You know, we just sent them $20 billion and a bunch more bombs. It's so strange that we can't get them to negotiate in good faith. Wow, I don't know why that is. How much more do you need?
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. And look, everything you said there is true. That requires a bit more understanding than I think, is required to just understand the immediate short-term absurdity of saying on one side, we're going to make sure we are unequivocal in our support for Israel's right to defend itself, but we need a deal. You don't have to know all that. I mean, it's great that you do, and it's great that we all understand that. And yes, Americans should understand that as best they can. What you have to understand right now, as it pertains to this question, is that Benjamin Netanyahu is the obstacle to a deal. If the Israelis, who are probably the most brainwashed population of people on the planet, if they understand that, then we should be able to understand that. And for everybody who's trying to gaslight us saying, well, I think she's just playing it close to the vest. I think she has some other plan as to what she's going to do on Israel-Palestine. Well, people make that excuse for Donald Trump, right? Well, maybe he'll do something. I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe pigs will fly in 5 years. Maybe there will be some genetic mutation and pigs will be able to fly. I mean, there's no evidence for that.
If my theory about China is true, they will.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that is more of the same. And that is why I say, if your red line is genocide, and if not that, what? I mean, how could you go and pull the lever for this? How could you? I mean, it's just horrible. It's just pathetic. And it's just pathetic that the conversation on the left is even about fracking at this point. Fracking. Look what's happening. Right? I mean, how is that not top of mind, most urgent? Right? We talk about, well, yeah, I mean, they're terrible on this, but maybe we'll get a fracking ban.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What are you talking about?
There's a meme going around. I forget who originally said it. It was he's I think an ex-Columbia professor. Yeah, I'm not sure if he said it in a TED Talk or if he's given a TED Talk. I got to get this guy's name. But he said, if they can get your vote while supporting a genocide, they know there's nothing they can't do to you.
Exactly. Yep.
That's why you don't vote for them. If you want to know why, that's why.
Yep. Absolutely.
Please clap.